Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. And good afternoon. I always try for three. It's a very special closing of our fall semester World Affairs luncheons today. We are honored and delighted to welcome back to one of the most distinguished mayors in the world, a man who rescued his beloved country of Palermo by getting rid of the Mafia and transforming it into a city that was of, for, and by the people, a city of citizens, a city of culture. I've been thinking a lot about cities recently and how much I like them, large, small, and medium. A late political scientist, known by our speaker today, Benjamin Barber, published a book titled If Mayors Ruled the World: Dysfunction Nations, Rising Cities. So that's us. Though our nation has had some dark moments in recent times, I wouldn't call it dysfunctional. But Barber believed that cities are democracy's best hope. Food for thought. We can think today of our own mayor, first of all, of our mayor, of Jane Jacobs, who loves cities, and of our own mayor, Paige Cognetti, who has brought wisdom and honesty to our people. And we welcome the world's mayor, a transformer of Palermo and a model for the world, Leoluca Orlando. Please welcome him to the podium.
Good morning. Good morning, and I wish to say thanks to all of you for your presence. I wish to say thanks to Sandra Myers for the kind words she has used, even sharing the memory of Benjamin Barber. Benjamin Barber was something like a prophet because he just built the prophecy of a different role of the mayors in the world. And he spoke about not independence, but interdependence. We were together in Philadelphia on 4th of July in 2002, together with Benjamin Barber, and we inaugurated the Interdependence Day just in the city of Philadelphia. This is the city of the bells of the Independence Day, just to send the message that in a global dimension, we are all interdependent. We are all interdependent. So I do depend from you, and you do depend from me. We are all interdependent. Anyway, I wish to introduce me. I am a grandfather, 4 times grandfather. I am married since 51 years. My poor wife, she will be declared a saint, I believe. And I am just happy to have 2 daughters with my wife. I am a former Jesuit student. I was educated by the Jesuit, and some Jesuits played an important role for my political and cultural education. I believe in God, but please, don't ask me the name of God. So, when I am in a mosque, I pray Allah. When I am in a synagogue, I pray Yahweh. In this moment, when I am in a Christian church, I pray Jesus Christ. It is not an insurance contract for my second life. I don't do that. I don't say that because I wait for the moment I will meet God and I will say, my dear Allah, even for you I prayed. It's not for that I speak so. It is because I think that it is not acceptable just to divide in name of God. I cannot accept to be divided by a Muslim, by Jewish, by an Hindu in name of God. And finally, I wish to say I am a racist. I'm sorry to tell you, I am a racist. I do defend the only existing race, the human race. Who make distinction between the races, he's the criminal. I am a racist. I think that we all belong to the same human race. Without distinction between Christian, black, white, yellow, Hindu. We are all human beings. With this presentation, I am the mayor of Palermo. I was the mayor of Palermo. I've been 60 times mayor of Palermo. The first time I was elected in 1985, and I was not 5 years old. I was not 5 years old. I was something more old. And I've been always elected the re-elected mayor of the city, but every 2 terms, for the Italian legislation, I had to stop. And in the meanwhile, I've been a member of the European Parliament, of the National Parliament, but always wishing to come back to my city, to Palermo. I come from Palermo, I was born in Palermo. I've been for 22 years mayor of Palermo. I know. I have to speak about the Mafia. It should be fantastic to be invited as a former mayor of Palermo and to be invited to speak about music. But anyway, I hope that one day you will invite me to speak about music. I love music. But waiting the moment I'll speak about Mafia. The Mafia is not a crime. The Mafia is not a crime. It's a system of power. It's a criminal system of power. It's a criminal system of religious power, of economic power, of political power. It's a criminal system. I make a difference between the normal criminality, excuse me for using normal, and the mafias. Not the mafia, the mafias. Not only Sicilian, all the mafias. The normal criminality is against the state and outside the state, against the banks and outside the banks, against the church and outside the church, against civil society and outside civil society. This normal, excuse me for normal, excuse me for using the word normal, the normal criminality is against and outside. The mafias are against and inside the state, against and inside the church, against and inside the civil society, against and inside the banks. A normal criminal, excuse me for normal, a normal criminal to pick away money from the banks needs to cover the head, needs a weapon, needs just to come inside with the weapons and to ask the money to the people working there. The violence is a normal criminal. A mafia boss needing money, he goes to the bank, he rings the bell, and the director say welcome and gives the money without problems. You understand the difference between criminality against and outside, and criminality against and inside. The mafia governed the city of Palermo. The mafia at the face of the mayor. The mafia at the face of the bishop. The mafia at the face of prosecutor. The mafia at the face of the chief of police. The mafia governed the city of Palermo. I decided to be involved in the fight against the mafia on 6th January 1980. 6th January 1980, I was a young professor of public law, very, very young professor, youngest professor of public law in Italy, in the university. And 6th January 1980 was killed the president of the Sicilian region, the governor of Sicily, we say. It was Piersanti Mattarella. Piersanti Mattarella was killed by politicians of our party, and by mafiosi. By the body of the killed president were the brother, Sergio, professor in the university, my colleague in the same department in the law faculty in the University of Palermo. And there was the widow of Piersanti. And they said to me, you cannot accept that Piersanti will die a second time. You are 30 years old. You have never met the politicians who were killed at Piersanti, and you are pretty crazy. I was pretty crazy. I occupied the faculty of law, where my father was the dean. Then I went to Germany, occupied the faculty of law, but the dean was not my father. So at least peace in family, peace in family. And I could not say no. And I decided to let my city to be free from the politicians who governed the city of Palermo, who killed my friend Piersanti. I candidate. Together with me was candidate the brother Sergio. At that time, the mayors were elected by the city council, and both were elected members of city council, and Sergio voted for me. And I started my experience as mayor of Palermo in 1985. I dedicated all my life to let Palermo to be free from the government of the mafia. And the 31st January 2015, when Sergio Mattarella was elected the president of the Italian Republic, I called him and said, Sergio, mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. You are the president of the Italian Republic. I am the mayor of Palermo, and the politicians who killed your brother do not govern any longer the city of Palermo. Mission accomplished. But it was a long way. It was a long way that I call process of peace. It was something like a process of peace. I started my experience just in the middle of a war, the Mafia war. It was a time of war. It was the war of the weapons of the Mafia. The Mafia killed 100 persons. You cannot imagine how many friends of mine, how many friends in university, how many colleagues in the school, how many my relatives were killed by the Mafia, all being against the Mafia. And they were killed in solitude, because when I decided to fight against the Mafia, I was considered atheist and communist. Atheist and communist. Believe me, nobody is perfect, but I never been atheist. Believe me, nobody is perfect, I never been communist. But being atheist, why I was atheist? I attacked the Mafia, and the bishop who were mafiosi said that I was atheist. So I was atheist. And when I went into church, I was considered just the enemy. And I was isolated in the church. I had to stay during the mass just in a separate place, because I was an atheist. Because I defended I fight against the Mafia, and the Mafia was a friend of the Catholics. And I was considered a communist. Communist. I never been communist. I'm sorry, nobody's perfect. I've never been communist. But what can I do? But being against the ministers, I was considered the opposition and communist. But with me, there were a few other atheists and communists. One atheist and communist was the Archbishop of Palermo, the Cardinal Pappalardo. Was really an atheist and communist, because he was strongly engaged against the Mafia. And he was completely isolated, not by the mafiosi. He was isolated by the priests, by the other bishops, who considered a cardinal like Salvatore Pappalardo atheist and communist. I maintained my religious faith thanking Pappalardo. I have to say thanks him, because without a bishop like him, I should be atheist. Sure, atheist. Just the name of this impossible condition of many, many Catholic priests and bishops, friend of the mafia boss. And I started my experience. It was a war. Imagine, the war with the weapons of the mafia, the war of the sentences of the state. My first building as mayor, my first construction was the Aula Bunker. Bunker means war. The Aula Bunker was just the place to host the maxi trial against the 475 mafia bosses. 475 mafia bosses. The biggest process against the mafia in the history of the world. That was a moment to say basta. But I was isolated at that time. Were isolated Judge Falcone and Borsellino, both my friends. Were isolated many were involved in the palace because my enemies in the city hall were not in front of me. My enemies were behind me and near to me. Were the persons who were accustomed to be servant of the mafia bosses. Because before me, all the mayor of Palermo were friends of mafia boss. All. I must be honest. There was one. He was not friend of mafia boss. No. He was the mafia boss. Vito Schemel. He was in the same moment. Mafia boss and mayor of Palermo. Living in a city where the mayor is the mafia boss, do you imagine that some citizen will go to the police against the mafia bosses? You can imagine. We are Sicilian, yes. A Swedish. If a Swedish that is not Sicilian, is a German that is not Sicilian, sees the killer, the mafia boss killer, having a dinner with the chief of police, you can imagine they will go to the police to allegate the killer, will close the eyes, the mouth, and the ear. Not seeing, not speaking, not hearing. It was just the fear, the kingdom of the fear. It was just something like a cocktail of shame and fear. Of shame and fear. And the situation changed in 1992. When in 1992 there were the killing of Falcone and Borsellino in Capaci and Via D'Amelio. The terrible massacre of Capaci, terrible massacre of Via D'Amelio without a bomb. 1,000 kilos of explosive. 1,000 kilos of explosive. That moment, the climate changed. The people said basta. Enough is enough. Too much is too much. And after so many years of silence, so many years of isolation of persons like me fighting the mafia, the women, two women, launched the initiative. They showed the white sheet outside the balcony and invited all the women to expose the white sheet outside the balconies. It was something like a virtual explosion of white sheet. Thousands and thousands of women exposed the white sheet just to say basta. Do you know what that means? Civil courage. Because in some case, in the same building, where was exposed the white sheet, lived the mafia boss. That meeting the lady in the lift could say, why you are against us? You understand? But they said basta. They said we want to show our face against the mafia. We want to just to open the eyes, open the mouth, open the ear. And there was a human chain. Thousands and thousands of persons who were all together, hands in hands, children, hold persons just marching in the street, marching along the street in the city and finishing organizing a sit-in in front of the Justice Palace to say solidarity to the prosecutors who fight in solitude, because inside the same office there were many prosecutors who were friends of Mafia boss. And the judge like Falcone, like Borsellino, were obliged to fight having as enemies their colleague. And because the Mafia was inside. It was inside. But after this explosion, something changed. The Pope, Johannes Paolo, in Agrigento, in 1993, clearly spoke against the Mafia. So even the Pope was atheist and communist, finally. Even the Pope was atheist and communist, and he spoke just clearly against the Mafia. The Mafia did not accept this message, and they produced the massacre in Florence, massacre in Rome, against the church, Catholic Church, and 15 September in Palermo, the Mafia boss killed Don Pino Pugliese, a close friend of mine, a priest, on the day of his birthday. They killed him. He was not against the Mafia. I knew very well Pino. He was a simple priest, just like many others. He only asked the school for the children. He only asked to have a school for the children. A simple priest asking the school for the children was more dangerous for the Mafia boss than the weapon of police, than the sentences of the court. And that priest was a martyr of faith. He was killed in the name of the faith of Johannes Paul II, who said that the Catholic Church cannot accept the Mafia. And they killed Don Pino Pugliese. The biggest mistake of the Mafia, because the Mafia lost the solidarity of the bishops. The bishops could not say, the Mafia doesn't respect us. The Mafia does not touch us. It was the alibi to make a business with the Mafia bosses. And many bishops did business with Mafia bosses, including important cardinals in Rome. But that was the change. After 2 months, I was not mayor. In 1992, 1993, I was member of the Italian Parliament. And in November 1993, after 2 months, the killing of Don Pino Pugliese, I was elected mayor the first day with 75%. There was the evolution of the city. And Nino Caponnetto, the leader of Falcone and Borsellino, the leader of the pool anti-mafia, there was the pool of Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, was elected in my party, La Rete, the network, in the city council. From that moment, I can tell you, the Mafia did not govern any longer the city of Palermo. And we decided not to stop. We decided to go forward and to pass from the respect of the right to the respect of the rights, from the respect of the law to the respect of the rights. In many cases, the law is against the rights. In many cases, the state law does not respect the rights. We ask the right of truth. In many cases, the law does not allow to discover the truth. The right to have justice. In many cases, the state law does not allow to have justice. The right to live. Imagine, in that years, I gave honorary citizenship of Palermo to condemned to death. to condemn to death. A condemned to death is a criminal. Normally, he's a criminal. And I decided to give, in cooperation with Amnesty International, the honorary citizenship of Palermo to condemn to death, to say that the life is holy. The life is holy, even the life of boss. To send the message that we are not only for the legality of the law, but we are for the legality of the rights. And I gave many honorary citizenship of Palermo. One of these guys who received the honorary citizenship of Palermo, when he knew that he was honorary Palermitan, he called me from Richmond, from Virginia. It was Joseph Odell. He was a Cherokee, an Indian Cherokee, living just in the periphery of the civil society. He was a criminal, but he was alleged to have killed a woman. And she said, "Luca, Mayor, I never killed the women. My mother was a prostitute. My father was violent. I have lived always in the periphery of the civil society. But believe me, I never killed that women." I said, "Joseph, I do not care. It's not my problem. If you ever killed or not killed that women. My problem is another. Nobody can kill. Neither the state can kill." And I promoted a campaign just to let the governor of Virginia not to execute the death penalty. Even the Pope spoke clearly. Even the European Parliament, I was in the European Parliament, and even the European Parliament approved without opposition just the request to the governor of Virginia not to execute that penalty. I spoke with Hillary Clinton, with Bill Clinton, at that time president, but they told me it's not in our competence. And the governor was called, in the electoral campaign, was called Mr. Death. Mr. Death. Because he said, if I will be elected, I will execute this penalty. Finally, I went to Richmond because Joseph Odell told me there's only one chance, that you try to speak with the governor. I arrived in the Richmond airport. There were 100 soldiers, not to defend me, as usually happened all over the world, but to defend the people of Richmond from me, arriving just in Richmond. Because he was a dangerous man who was asking to respect the human life. He was executed. And the lawyer of him married him 3 hours before I was executed. Because the last desire of Joseph Odell was to be buried in Palermo. And Joseph Odell is buried in Palermo. It's just in a tomb given by a Palermitan 85 years old. 85 years old, he gave his tomb for this Cherokee coming from Virginia. And the sons of this old told me, "Mr. Mayor, our father is crazy. He's 85 years old. Now we have no tomb to bury him when he will die." And it was just really a moment in which I participated to the mass for the killing of a man, not killed by the Mafia, but killed by the state. Just to send a message, we are against the death penalty. Everybody surprised. Mr. Orlando, a justicialist, always asking prison, always asking condemnation, always speaking against the criminals, now gives the only citizenship. Yes, because I am a human being, and I do respect the human being. Even Totorina, my boss, is a human being. He has to stay in prison, of course, but he's a human being. Because if we want to win the fight against the criminals, we cannot have the mask of the criminals too. We must distinguish us from them. It is the lesson coming from Palermo. It is our process of peace. Therefore, when the migrant arrived, we did not know the immigration. We Sicilians knew the emigration. We know the sufferance of Sicilians just going in other countries. In many cases, Sicilians just were fugitive from the Mafia. In many cases, the Sicilians did not want to live under the pressure of the Mafia. And to be free, they arrived in the United States of America. To be free, they arrived in Germany. And when they arrived, they were condemned 2 times. 1 time because they were poor. A second time because they were mafiosi. And they were the victims of Mafia. I can tell thousands and thousands of stories of poor people leaving Sicily because they did not want to accept the violence of the Mafia, arriving in the United States of America, considered the mafiosi. 2 times victims. 1 time victim in Sicily, 1 time victim in the United States of America. And therefore I said, when somebody asked me, how many migrants are in Palermo? I do not reply 80,000 or 90,000. I reply no one. Who lives in Palermo is Palermitan. I make no distinction between who was born in Palermo, who does live in Palermo. So Sondra, I'm sorry for you, when you will come in Palermo, you will be Palermitan. Of course, you can live when you wish. You can live when you wish. But until when you stay, you are a Palermitan. Do you know what that means? It means that we have no contrast inside our society. You probably don't know, Palermo is considered by police the safest city in Italy. The safest city in Italy. We have no contrast, no racism, no violence. When police arrested the 5 Nigerians, I forgot, even Nigerians are criminals, not only Sicilian, not only German, even Nigerians. I forgot. When police arrested 5 Nigerians, after 2 hours, 200 Nigerians organized a flash mob in front of City Hall, saying we are with police against criminals, Nigerians. Do you know what that means? Civil courage. Because I live protected. 3 protected car, helicopter, ambulance. Still now, I cannot move without the bodyguards all over in the Europe. But these Nigerians protesting and defending the police at the end of the initiative, at the end of flash mob, they go home. And they go home. And near their house, near their home, there's the home of the son of the arrested Nigerian. You know what that means? Civil courage. Civil courage. And I think that we 5 merchants, 5 businessmen coming from Bangladesh refused to pay pizzo, refused to pay black money, the money given to the mafia boss to be protected, refused to pay illegal money to 10 Palermitans. I supported them, I helped them, the 10 so-called Palermitans were arrested. Who are the real Palermitans? The 10 arrested who asked the pizzo, or the 5 Bengalis who refused to pay pizzo? Probably the 5 Bengalis are the real Palermitans. So, with these ideas, we approved the Charter of Palermo. You can find in Google, Charter of Palermo in English. We approved just a charter in 2015 saying that we welcome everybody. We are against residence permit. And I spoke about this position with my friends in Mexico, with my friends in Tijuana, in Ciudad Juarez, in San Antonio, just speaking about the wetbacks in South, or speaking about the other Mexicans trying to go to the north, to the United States of America. We have to welcome everybody. And we have to let the people coming be visible. Because if you are invisible, you are dangerous. What does it mean, visible? If you are invisible, you are dangerous. There is no distinction between a mafia boss fugitive who is invisible, who tries to be invisible, is dangerous for him and for the others, and the person's honest man without documents. He is dangerous for himself and for the others. I decide to give to everybody just living in Palermo the anagraphic residence. It's my competence as mayor. So I can say Mr. Ahmed lives in Liberty Street and I'm 35. Giving this residence, this anagraphic residence, they can finally work not in black. Having this anagraphic residence, they can finally meet an apartment not in black. And one of these guys received the anagraphic residence in an interview to La Repubblica, our New York Times, the most important newspaper in Italy, said, I don't know the Mayor Orlando. I wish to say thanks him because he gave to me an anagraphic residence. Now, finally, having an anagraphic residence, I can pay taxes. And I say, I can send the police to arrest you. Security. Security. If I leave invisible persons coming from abroad, I do not guarantee security. So to give identity, to let people be visible. When I signed this anagraphic residence, at that time the Minister of Interior, Salvini, a sovereignist, Minister of Interior, I was the mayor, said in an official meeting, I will send the army to arrest Orlando. The army till now did not arrive. After 7 years, did not arrive. Anyway, when the army will arrive, I will welcome the soldier, of course. I welcome everybody, so no problem. But the day after, 100 students organized a flash mob of solidarity to me against the minister. And the Archbishop of Palermo, during the mass, saying, Mr. Mayor, you have not only to make resistance to this not human law, we have to organize the resistance. Not only to resist, but even organize. During the mass, with the music of the organs, just to say how changed my city. Thanking the Mafia. I have to say thanks to the Mafia, because they obliged us to become better. They obliged us just to discover that does not exist only the law, but does exist even the right. Do exist even the rights. And the Constitutional Court and the prosecutor declared that my behavior was legal. And the Constitutional Court said that the Salvini law was anti-constitutional, was aversive. The Minister of Interior just saying that he will send the army to stop me was aversive. And I was just respectful of the Constitution. Being professor of constitutional law, I knew what was possible to do. I have read some article in my life of constitutional law. It is just the change of Palermo. Today Palermo is a touristic city. Millions of persons. People in the past who landed in the airport of Palermo were only journalists to make some interview about the Mafia. They were landed even the drug of the Mafia. Nothing else. Palermo was connected with the 5 cities, with 5 flights in 2 cities, Rome and Milan, during the day, nothing else. Today we are directly connected with the 96 cities all over the world. We have millions of tourists, we have a restaurant, we have a pub, we have a taxi, car sharing, bike sharing, sustainable mobility, tram. We have a lot of problems, but we are free. We are free from the government of the Mafia. I think it is a great change. And I hope that one day you will come in Palermo, you will visit, and will see with your eyes how beautiful is Palermo, how beautiful and safe is Palermo. Safe. I know it appears to be a miracle, but sometimes the heroes and the saints make miracles. And heroes and saints, like Falcone, Borsellino, like Don Pino Puglisi, they make the miracle. To let Palermo to be different, to change. And just yesterday, I wrote the last two words in a book of mine, because I published a lot of books in American language, Fighting the Mafia, by Encounter Books in San Francisco. In Germany, I sold 300,000 copies of my book in German language, not existing in Italian. Not existing in Italian. Existing in Arabic, in Spanish, in Mexico, in Peru, but not in Italy. And finally, I decided to write a book by Rizzoli, an important editor in Italy. And the last two words where I'm finishing to write this book just in the airport of Rome, because I'm flying to Scranton, invited by University of Scranton. So when the book will be published, you will read even my last trip before finishing my book. 40 years of life of me, of the city. I tell without pietà, I just speak about all my mistakes. I do not hide anything. I say what I did, what I wished to do, what I was not able to do, because today, what is fantastic for me, that I am considered something like a Stadtvater. Stadtvater in German language means the father of the city. And sometimes it is the time in which the father becomes old and then die, but remains the father. And I will die Mayor of Palermo. I will die Mayor of Palermo because the Palermitans love me, and because I was appointed Mayor of Palermo in Colombia. 50,000 inhabitants, the second largest Palermo in the world after Palermo in Italy. So when I will die, it will be possible to write on my... I want to be burned, of course. I don't want my body still just in the middle of the persons, giving the story to everybody. So, and they will write, Leoluca Orlando, Mayor of Palermo. Don't cry. I am only asleep. Thanks a lot. Question, please. Question, consideration, notes, remarks.
I actually just would like to thank you for your stories, for your history behind Palermo. And I actually did visit Palermo about 6 years ago, and it is truly a beautiful city. So everything that you've done, well worth it. And thank you so much for being here today.
No, I wish to say thanks to you, because you know that behind what we've seen, there have been something like the Third World War against Palermitans, of course, because you have seen how many pedestrian areas. Just when I decided to start with the pedestrian areas in the historic center of Palermo, there was just the revolt. And it was a revolt that was just sponsored by criminals, because they just wanted to control territory, through the so-called illegal parking men. So, illegal person who played the role of illegal parking. Don't worry, I put your car here, give me 10 euro. Don't worry, I put your car here. And they were not only people asking money, but they were even persons controlling territory. And when I started, there was a revolt that was pushed by these illegal parking men, and arrived the police in anti-revolt. And I went there. One of the person who had a shop, a cafe, a bar, came by me and asked him, how are going now the business? He told me just watching not to be seen, watching not to be heard. Mr. Mayor, are going very well, but I cannot say. I have to protest. You understand what I mean? So the pedestrian areas are just a symbol of liberation of the city. And thanks for your promotion of the city of Palermo. Thanks.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor,
Oh, yes.
will you define mafia? Will you give us your definition of mafia?
No, the origin of the word, I say the origin, and then I try to say the characteristic of mafia. The origin of the word mafia, we have many theories about the origin of the word mafia, many. But the most exciting theory says that the word mafia comes from Arabic language. Mafia. Mafia means does not exist. Does not exist. So the mafiosi want that people say does not exist. You remember Odysseus? You remember Polyphemo, the Cyclope? Do you remember when Odysseus meets Cyclope, Polyphemo? And Polyphemo, the Cyclope, asked, what is your name? And he said, my name is Nobody. Nobody. Then, when Odysseus went against the Cyclope asked help from the other Cyclopes and said, my dear friend Cyclops, come, there's something against me. And the other Cyclops asked, who is against you? Nobody. If nobody against you, don't need our help. If it does not exist, you don't need my fight. You don't need to fight against me. So, mafia. But mafia is what I call, mafia needs silence and dark. Silence and dark. If the mayor of Hamburg, if the mayor of Scranton, if the mayor of Paris says, we have no mafia in Hamburg, we have no mafia in Scranton, we have no mafia in Paris, it is an official invitation to the mafia to go as soon as possible to Hamburg. Official invitation. Because mafia needs that people say does not exist. Today, the most dangerous place for the mafia is Corleone. Because Corleone is controlled. If you should be a mafia boss, should you keep your money in a bank in Corleone? Control the day and night. It's more comfortable just to have the money in a bank in Scranton, in Hamburg. Nobody asks, who are you? Not in Corleone. But what I wish to say, the mafia, the mafia does not, the normal criminal looks for money and needs impunity. The mafia looks for power, catch money, and tries to have impunity. The power is important for the mafia bosses. In many cases, the mafia boss lost money to preserve the power. They lost money in name of the power, to control. Therefore, the mafia is a system of control. In 2006, I called my friend, the chief of Italian police, a very brave police, Antonio Manganelli. I called Antonio Manganelli. He was chief of police in Rome. And I was mayor. I was not mayor at that time. I was a member of the Italian parliament. I called the chief of police and said, Antonio, congratulations. Why? Congratulations. Why congratulations? You are just congratulating with me because we arrested Bernardo Provenzano. Bernardo Provenzano is boss of the bosses that he arrested. Ah, yes, sì, of course. Congratulations for arrest of Bernardo Provenzano. But first of all, I wish to tell you my congratulations because now finally we have many robberies in the houses in Corleone. For 27 years, Corleone was the safest place in the world. Was completely controlled by the boss, and nobody was free. Neither the robber were free to be robber. Do you know what that means? So when people say statistic, no please. Corleone was in a terrific condition. 7 banks, no robbery. It's not normal. 7 banks, no robbery. For 30 years. Now finally, if you go in Corleone, probably it is a robbery. I'm happy. I'm happy. Because a normal city. Normal city. Because in the past, everybody was afraid that could hit the property of some mafia boss. But mafia is not only Sicilian. Mafia is what I call identity-based criminality. Mafia needs to pervert the culture. Mafia has perverted the Sicilian culture. We have a traditional Sicilian values. Traditional Sicilian values are honor, family, friendship, faith. And mafia is killed in the name of honor, transforming honor in shame. Mafia is killed in the name of friendship, transforming friendship in a criminal alliance. Mafia is killed in the name of faith, transforming the saint in mafia boss, in protector of mafia boss. The same happened in Germany. Hitler was a mafia boss. He perverted the identity of German people. He did pervert the German culture. In the German culture is important. German language is my second language. My fourth is Italian. Anyway, my first is Sicilian. Anyway, but German, my first is Sicilian, Sicilian language. Adolf Hitler, he perverted the values of German culture. In German culture, there is a value, respect of the authority. Respect of the authority. Respect of the law. And he used this positive value, respect the law is positive. He used this positive value of German people to let the German obey to the criminal law against the Jewish, against the genocide. So you can understand. Osama bin Laden is a mafia boss. He perverted the Islamic culture. He transformed the Quran into a shame. And he found the arguments to kill in the religious faith. I have a tremendous respect for the Islamic culture. Tremendous respect. I consider the first enemy of Islamic culture Osama bin Laden. He's mafioso. And I can go ahead speaking about the mafia. Because the mafia in Mexico, do you know who are the mafiosi? In Mexico, the mafiosi are people who pervert the most important Mexican value. The most important Mexican value, the most important value for Mexican people is avanzar. Avanzar. El que no tranza no avanza. El que no tranza no avanza. He who is not a robber, he will never succeed. You know, it's a perversion. Avanzar is a value. Avanzar, it means to have success, to get important target. So the Mexican say el avanza, ma avanzar, being a criminal, is a perversion, is mafia. Do you know why the narco trafficant in Colombia, they are mafiosi? Not only because I have a strong connection with Medellin, with Bogota, anyway, but you know why they are mafiosi? Because they do pervert the value of justice. The Colombian people, they need justice. They believe in justice. And the paramilitaries, they perverted justice. The FARC perverted justice. Even Pablo Escobar perverted the justice, you know. Pablo Escobar, the boss of the narcos, of Colombian narcos, paid $1,300 to whom killed a police in uniform. $2,000 if he killed the police not in uniform. He paid. He paid not because the police was against narcos, because he was a police. Just to demonstrate I do control territory. He paid the citizen who killed the police. Then she called the widow of police and gave as gift an apartment. Do you know the perversion? The perversion. Just to send a message that you have not to be police. And I kill your husband. I give you an apartment to let you say to your children that they have never to be police. To understand what a kind of mystification. Just the same of the mafia boss. When they are arrested, they've always just a photo of the saint. And they are really religious. They say they do respect the faith, of course, because they need to be accepted by the people. Anyway, our process of peace was something like a process of freedom from fear. Your president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, in 1941, 6 January 1941, he said very important words. He spoke about freedom. He spoke about freedom of speech, freedom of wisdom, freedom from need, and freedom from fear. And 2 years ago, the Anne Roosevelt, the granddaughter of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the King of Holland, Alexander William Alexander, gave to me the Freedom from Fear Award. Because Palermo demonstrated it's possible to be free from fear. To be finally free from fear. It's a reason for which I think that our message can be important in many, many countries where it is necessary to build the peace. I am strongly engaged in Colombia, where it's just on the way a process of peace. One day, the war in Ukraine will finish. What will be the peace? To let the Chinese to rebuild the buildings destroyed in Ukraine? The Chinese to rebuild the buildings destroyed in Ukraine? Or to take care of the sentiments of people? And how many years we need Ukrainians just to pass from the war to the peace? And how many years we need the Russian people to pass from the war to the peace? I give my solidarity to Russian people. I give my solidarity to Russian people because Russian people, they are the victims of Putin. Just like the Ukrainians, they both are victims of a dictator. How many years will need my Russian friend to be free from the shame of this time? How many years needed the German, my friend, to be free from the shame of Hitler. So I think that we will take care of the process of peace, even in Ukraine, even in Russia. Thanks.
I think that my recollection is that you made the people know that they were citizens. Not they weren't subjects of the mafia. I recall that when I was there, when I was looking at some outdoor sculptures, and I must have been in a group. And so when we got to the one sculpture, who was the docent that showed it to us? It was a fourth grader, and he knew what he was doing. He felt that he had the will and the skills to do it, and I just gave that saw it as an example of something that quickly people adapted to being citizens. How did that happen?
It was the passage from the silence of the fear to the protest of the fear, and finally to the conscience to have human rights. Because, for instance, just fighting against the mafia, the women in Palermo discovered their rights. The movement of liberation of the women in Palermo was helped by the protest against the mafia. Because the women in Palermo discovered that the mafia boss let the women be invisible, not having a social role, not existing in social society, being only wife and mother, not being able to have other role. I'm father and husband, but I have other role. So do you understand? So for us, the fight against the mafia, the reaction against the mafia, that was very strong in 1992, was just a movement of liberation of the women. Today, for instance, we have women who are atheists, together with le suore, le monache, the monks, no? Le suore, who are in the convent, the women in the convent.
Nuns.
Done. So you can see atheists and none together to celebrate Saint Rosalia, a symbol of freedom of the women. It's fantastic. And you can see when we switch on the Hanukkah, the Jewish fest of the candles, just switching the candles are the mayor, the Catholic bishop, the imam, I forgot, the rabbi too. The rabbi. It's a Jewish fest. We're all together. I participate to all the Muslim Islamic fest. I participate to the Ramadan. I participate to Iftar, that is the dinner during the month of the Ramadan. I pray Allah just with 10,000 Muslims on the carpets just to La Mecca, just to send the message that if God is one, He's one. I mean, therefore, we have no intolerance, no homophobia. We organized one day a pride, you don't know, but we organized in Palermo the largest gay pride in South Europe. The largest. 100,000 people participating. And when I go there, I find my granddaughters, my grandson, all there. Just 10 years old, 12 years old. Just anyway, and before pandemic, I say to my friends homosexual, you pretend respect of your rights. I do respect your rights. May I ask you to respect the rights of the migrants? How many times the homosexuals are intolerant? Many times. Then I call them my migrants friend and say, do you pretend respect of your rights? I do respect your rights. May I ask you to respect the rights of homosexuals? How many Muslims are homophobe? And I said, I will not participate to gay pride this year for the first time after many years. Why? I will participate only if you organize the Gay Pride this year in name of homosexuality and migration. But finally they organized 3 months of discussion about homosexuality and migration. Because to speak of respect of human rights, to welcome the migrants, let me speak to the migrants that they have to respect human rights too. Exactly. But if you don't respect their human rights, I have no title to ask them to respect human rights. So as you can understand, of course, the cultural change is something like an implosion, is to let explode contradictions. And Palermo is a fantastic living a contradiction. Is living a contradiction. We are a living contradiction. We are aristocratic and popular. We are silent and noisy. We are clean and dirty. We are mafiosi and mafiosi. We are honest and corrupted. We are a living contradiction. When Palermo will not be no longer a contradiction, or will die. And I hope to die before to see my city die.
I don't, and any other questions? I can only say,
Oh, thanks.
yes. No. Before that, I just want to say, how many of us want to go to Palermo? Schemel Forum?
Not a question, just a very simple sentence. Che il Signore benedica Lucia.
I don't hear.
Che il Signore benedica a Lucia.
Vicenza benedica. It says, you know, it's a traditional Sicilian expression. She has said, God bless you. God bless you. But God bless you is not only you. Is God bless your excellency. Your excellency. And I wish to speak to you about Sicilian language. Because you know, a fisherman has explained to me the difference between a dialect and the language. He was just crying, fish, 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 fish. And I said, you are crying in Sicilian dialect, so you can sell more fishes. He watched me and said, Professor, what are you saying? Sicilian dialect. The Sicilian is not a dialect, it's a language. I was surprised because I did not expect that a very simple fisherman could speak about difference between dialect and language. And I did not have the time to ask him, Pepuccio was the name. Pepuccio, what is the difference for you? That he told me, Professor, do you know the difference between dialect and language? I was surprised. And then he said, a language is a dialect with the army. When the language is lost, the army becomes a dialect. Genial. Historically genial. And he has said, for mafiosi, my dear professor, for mafiosi, the Sicilian is a language because they have an army. Where to demonstrate that Sicilian is a language being against the army of the Mafia. So we can discuss 6 months, day and night, about the Sicilian language or dialect. But what is sure is that the Mafia bosses have confiscated the language. They have confiscated the language. And they've used the language to be accepted by everybody. So many Palermitans in the 60 years, 70 years, they just prohibited to the daughters, to the sons, to speak Sicilian. Because to speak Sicilian was to be mafioso. They just have confiscated this language. I remember there was a man who spoke only Sicilian. He told me, Mr. Mayor, I don't speak Italian. I speak only Sicilian. But my daughter, she does not know one single word of Sicilian. She has to speak only Italian. It was one way to say, we don't want to have any contact with the mafia using Sicilian language. But it was a confiscation, because they confiscated our tradition. For instance, the coppola, you know, is traditional hunt that was used by Sicilians to cover the head from the cold. The mafia is confiscated. And I promoted a campaign just to use the coppola. And I produced a coppola in red that I gave to the Cardinal of Palermo. Red, of course. And I gave a coppola just with the colors of Italy, white, the three colors of Italian flag, to the chief of police. Then I send a coppola white to the Pope. Fantastic. The Pope replied, saying, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I understand the meaning of this gift. You wish to send a message that the Sicilian, they want just to take back what was confiscated by the mafia. And they want just to have back their traditional coppola. I say thanks for your gift. But I have to remember you that since 2000 years, the Pope used another hand. So you will never see the Pope with the white coppola. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
I spoke too much.
No,
Sorry.
no.
But there's somebody saying that we Palermitans do not speak. Wrong. You can say we met a Palermitan who spoke too much. Nothing to do with the omertà.
You didn't speak too much. You've made real all sorts of sense to us, and I think maybe we can make our own city, something like Palermo. Thank you.
I wish just I give to you my business card.
Oh, good.
But it's a business card without any role. Because you know, one of my role, I am the president, the founder, the president of Italian Federation of American Football. I founded in Italy the Federation of American Football. I started with the 3 teams. Now we have 100 teams, 8,000 players, and the 1st July we will be in Toledo. We organize in Toledo. We will organize just the Italian Bowl in the United States of America. Not the Super Bowl, the Italian Bowl. But this year was in the city of Bologna, and next year we'll be in Toledo, United States of America. But American football is the poorest sport in Italy. So I am the president. It is so poor that I am president since 20 years. And in the last elections, I asked the general secretary, but when is the day to present the candidature? And the general secretary told me, it's expired 3 days ago. Oh, I say, so I cannot be candidate. No, we're candidate to you. And the other candidates, no candidate. So I am always the only candidate because nobody wants to be president of a so poor federation.